Sexual harassment. So sexual harassment laws are written in a gender-neutral manner of what's called the reasonable person standard. And the notion is, would a reasonable person view this pattern of conduct, like, say, making lewd jokes, commenting on someone's physical appearance, asking them out in the workplace, making sexual innuendos, etc. Would a reasonable person find this to be sexual harassment? Well, it turns out, in studies that I've done and other people have done, men and women differ. So women view exactly that same pattern of conduct to be more sexually harassing than men do. Men go, oh, it doesn't seem pretty innocuous to me.
By the man or from a woman?
Both. So if you just say, if a man is doing this to a woman, how harassing is that?
Right.
Men and women judge that differently. Okay, and the reason that that's important is because there is no generic reasonable person. And so we know that in terms of sexual harassment, about 90% of the victims are women, of legitimate sexual harassment are women. And the 10% that are not, they're typically harassed by men. So that is, males are the primary perpetrators of sexual harassment, women are the primary victims. So, but if you have...
So when you're saying the 10%, you're talking about a male sexually harassing another male.
Yes.
But what about women that sexually harass men? Like, what percentage of that is like bosses that sexually harass a male?
That occurs, but at a much lower rate.
Right. So less than 1%? Like, what do you...
Yeah, I would give it, a few percent perhaps, but it's statistically pretty rare.
That's interesting, though, the primary, even the 10%, where it's not men sexually harassing women, it's men sexually harassing men.
Right. Which is
gross.
Men
are disgusting.
That's that desire for sexual variety, which has negative consequences. But so then you go, though, to the judge and the jury. If the judge and jury are composed of reasonable men, the outcome is going to be very different than if they're composed of reasonable women. And so this is an example of where adopting a generic reasonable person standard, which implicitly denies that there exist any sex differences, that harms women, at least in cases where the reasonable people doing the judging are men.
Right. So if you have a jury of your peers, but your peers happen to only be male, and they're judging whether or not you've been sexually harassed, they might be inclined to deny it.
Right. Exactly. And I'll give you like one extreme case. This is an extreme case and not representative, but there was a while back a Texas politician that said, if a woman's going to be raped and it's inevitable, she might as well just lie back and enjoy it.
Someone said that?
Yeah, this is a politician, a Texas politician.
When was this?
This was a while back. I don't remember the exact year. But now, of course, he got a lot of flack for that. But what's astonishing is it also reveals to me this fundamental gap between male and female sexual psychology where men don't understand. They know that women differ, but they don't sufficiently recalibrate for how different they are. And so I think this is actually a generic problem that my lab is focusing on now. Some of my graduate students like Will Costello and Becca Hanel and Paula Baca, we're looking at what we call cross-sex mind reading, where it is a fascinating area where we are all, you, Joe, me, we're all stuck in the interior of our own psychology. That's actually, Russell Brand mentioned this. That's all the experience that he has. And so when we're trying to figure out what's going on in the minds of someone else, we have to make inferences. Now, if those inferences, if we consult, well, how would I feel if I were in that situation? Well, maybe that's a good starting point if you're making inferences about your own sex. But if you're making inferences about the opposite sex, you're going to be miscalibrated if you use your own intuitions about your own psychology as a basis for that inference. And so we know, based on my work and other people's work, that there are indeed systematic biases where men and women are both miscalibrated about what's going on in the other sex's mind. And so I think it's very important. This is one of the ways to reduce what you alluded to as this kind of adversarial conflict between the sexes, where some women are slamming all men, as part of the patriarchy, and then there are some men who are slamming all women, in misogynistic, elements of the manosphere, and there's this kind of adversarial stance between the sexes. And I think one solution to bridging that is having deeper scientific knowledge about really that there are these fundamental sex differences in our mating and sexual psychology, and that if you understand those, you'll be in a better position to interact with members of the opposite sex, and you won't make so many of these errors. Interestingly, one way to do that is if you have daughters and sons. So even on those, so you mentioned you have 2 daughters?
3.
3 daughters. Well, congratulations. 0 sons?
0 sons.
Okay, so that's interesting. So I wonder if you had sons, whether you would treat them differently. So
For sure.
Okay, so so why? I'm curious. So why would you treat?
Because they're dangerous.
Okay, so
Sons are dangerous. You have to train them to have discipline and to understand testosterone and understand their urges and not react violently and understand that your frontal lobe doesn't fully form until you're 25 years old. You're going to make some shitty decisions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I've done it. I've been there.
Okay. Yeah. As have we all.
Yeah. I mean, I am a man. When I'm around women, I'm like, okay, I have to figure out how your brain works. I don't know how your brain works. I'm guessing. I kind of have a rough understanding.
Yeah.
But it's it's a map of the territory. It's not lived experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's true of all of us.